All right, what's up, everybody? Look, we are officially 24 hours away from the stock market opening up tomorrow, and this Iran situation is still heating up, leaving many people wondering what in the world is going to happen in the market this week. Is this about to be a terrible week? Is this about to just be a chaotic week? Maybe it's going to be a good week. What's going to happen over the next 5 days? And so I wanted to make a quick video for you all, just giving you the latest on what is happening with Iran, then telling you how I think it's going to impact the market throughout this week, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my own personal plans and my own portfolio and the moves that I'm planning on making. So we have a good bit to get into today, so let's not waste any more time at all, and let's get straight into it. So in terms of news, obviously the biggest piece of news that we saw yesterday was the fact that Iran confirmed the death of their supreme leader. Now, this was something that was kind of rumored. The White House had announced it prior to them confirming it. People were speaking about it, but there were no official confirmations until yesterday around the afternoon time. And this was a bit of a surprise to some people, not because they announced his death, but what they said after. A lot of people were expecting that they would maybe announce this death and then maybe say, okay, maybe we'll pull back a little bit, realize that we're barking up a pretty big tree, right? We're poking a pretty big bear. That's not what Iran did in typical Iran fashion, right? They just basically said, look, we have a contingency plan for this. We're not scared of you guys. We're not going to back down. We're still in this thing. We used our old weapons on you guys. We're about to pull out our big guns. We're about to pull out our big weapons. And they basically said that they were going to continue to, escalate this, and they weren't just going to back down. Now, they followed this up with continued strikes. As you can see, they did go ahead and they fired on multiple bases, Israeli and U.S., across all of the Middle East. There were reports that Dubai and Qatar and many other places were being targeted. There's been a lot going on, but it just does go to show that over the last 24 hours, things have done nothing but escalate, realistically, right? They didn't calm down. Now, this is a very important thing, right? And I really want to kind of hard stop right here and talk about this, because this is an extremely important thing for the stock market going forward. Because there were maybe ideas Saturday night and Saturday morning that this would be a quick thing. Think about Venezuela, right? Friday night comes around, Trump does what he does, Venezuela situation happens. Come Monday, market doesn't even really care. It continues on in that direction. A lot of people, myself included, thought maybe this is how this is going to play out. It'll just be a quick thing, 2-day war, we call it a day. And if that was the case, there was a very real world in which the stock market, many other equities, commodities, even crypto start to continue upwards. And we actually see the weight of this Iran situation lifted off the shoulders of the market, and it actually starts to go up, right? That was a very real thing. But that does not seem to be how this is going to go. Because not only are Iran saying that they're going to go and continue to escalate this, so is the U.S. Trump said yesterday, whenever he announced the death of their supreme leader, that the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week, or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. So it doesn't seem as if they have any immediate intentions to just slow down. They did say, or as long as necessary to achieve our objective. So this doesn't mean that it for sure has to continue on from Monday to Friday, but there is a very real world in which this continues for days and days and days, especially if Iran plans on continuing to, to fight back realistically, right? And so it's important to understand this as a stock investor, a stock market investor, because it puts it into perspective that the market is going to have to absorb volatility. It's going to have to cope with this volatility, and that does create chaos. And it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if this uncertainty does start to lead to some sort of real volatility in the market this week. I would expect this to be one of the more volatile weeks in the market that we've seen recently, and that can create opportunity. Remember, volatility spawns an opportunity, and opportunity only lies within volatility. So realistically, there could be great buying opportunities coming up throughout the week. There could be great selling opportunities throughout the week. You never know how the market's going to respond to this, but it is very likely going to be chaotic. And I would expect, again, a lot of chaos over the next 4 or 5 days. And that's something that you just absolutely need to be okay with. Now, in order to kind of see how people are responding to this throughout the week, there's a couple of things that I personally am watching to gauge my my opinion on where the market is, right? First and foremost, I'm just going to watch the news. Unfortunately, I hate watching the news, but it is important to stay up to date with this Iran situation, because this is going to be the number one thing. This is going to be the main thing that's causing people to buy or sell stocks or whatever, right? So if prices are going up, if they're going down, it's going to solely rely on what is happening with this conflict. And so you need to keep an eye out on if things are escalating or de-escalating. Not how bad it's getting, right? I feel like people look at this in the wrong way. It's more about escalation versus de-escalation. So if the market anticipates that this is going to calm down soon, the market will respond positively to it. If the market feels like this is just going to get more and more out of hand, the market's going to respond negatively to it, because the market just does not like uncertainty. Uncertainty is the thing that causes the most ugliness in the market. And so that's what you need to pay attention to. Escalation versus there's de-escalation from both sides, that's going to tell you where the market's at. Now, in response to that, another couple things you can be paying attention to this week are crude oil prices. That's going to be extremely important because this is one of the number one how do you explain it? Like, you can look at crude oil prices to get an understanding of where inflation's going to be at, and therefore where basically everything's going to be at. I honestly think oil is one of the number one impactors on not only markets as a whole, but everyday life. When oil prices are super high, prices of everything goes up, which makes sense, right? When oil prices go up, then the overall production of products goes up, and then that, of course, that increased price falls on the consumer, so then inflation goes up. When inflation goes up, people de-risk, and then banks, and it's just like a whole thing, right? And this week, it's going to be extremely important to watch what crude oil does, because if this really does start spiking up like crazy, as people believe there's maybe going to be a shortage, if there's going to be disruptions in the supply chain and things of that nature, that could cause people to say, oh my God, like the market's going to start falling because inflation's going to start climbing, and then interest rates are going to have to go back up. It could cause all these stupid dominoes to fall, which could, of course, cause even more volatility in the market, which could, of course, cause the market to start to fall, right? And so not only do you want to be watching the news and what's happening with Iran, you want to be paying attention to crude oil prices and see if they start climbing. That will likely have a negative impact on the market. And the last thing that I am actually going to be watching out of curiosity are 10-year treasury yields. And the reason I'm watching 10-year treasury yields is because oftentimes when people do fly to safety, right, whenever they say, you know what, I'm just going to de-risk, I'm going to get out of stocks, I'm going to just buy some treasury yields, you'll notice obviously that those yields start falling. And so if these yields do start falling, that is an implication that the market is starting to de-risk and people are getting scared, right? And so this will give us a pretty big clue as to how people are responding to this and what people are expecting in the future. If people generally and genuinely expect that this is going to be a long-term conflict, you'll start to see these treasury yields really start falling off a cliff because people are going to start de-risking from their portfolios, right? And so the three biggest things to pay attention to this week, in my opinion, are how the market responds to any news, right? De-escalation versus escalation. How do oil prices respond to that, of course? And then from there, what does that then do to impact, of course, treasury yields? Because it all comes together to paint the picture that we can then use to make moves in my portfolio. So the thing that I'm going to do in my own personal portfolio, as you all know, one of the things I like to do here on this absolutely brand new channel is go over what I'm doing in my own portfolio. And what I'm personally planning on doing is kind of just hard pausing right now and watching those three things. Because if I can find a good opportunity within this this week coming up, I'm going to take it, right? So let's say, for example, this continues on like it is. Maybe we do start to see oil prices climbing a little bit. Treasury yields start falling. People are clearly scared. People are freaking out. Maybe even the market's falling a little bit. If that is the case and we do get some good buying opportunities, I'll probably go in and grab a little bit of VOO. You guys know I currently do have right around 588 shares of VOO at an average cost of $571, putting it at a market value of around $370,000. And I'd happily add on to this. It wouldn't be anything crazy, but yeah, maybe an extra, $5,000 or $10,000 into this position if I do get a good buying opportunity. Because although this is a scary situation, don't get me wrong, I actually don't believe that this is going to be something that impacts the market super long term. I think it's something that will have a short term to mid-term impact for sure, but I think long term we'll be able to move on from this, very similar to previous conflicts that we've seen in the past. And so I'm going to use it as an opportunity and not not something to run away from, if that makes sense. So I am planning on doing some buying, but I do need to see some good opportunities present themselves before I make that move. And obviously, if that does happen and I see those opportunities, I'll let you guys know when I do go in and start adding to my positions. I would only be adding to my my more safe position, my VOO position, just because I do believe in moments of conflict, going in on individual stocks or isolated positions, it's just a little bit of a risky thing to do because you never know how each sector is going to respond to conflict. Whereas when you have mass exposure to multiple different niches and subcategories and that's sectors, that's a little bit safer to me. And that's kind of the game I like to play with my portfolio. My portfolio is a little bit boring, but I do like to play it safe. So that's kind of my thing there. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I am expecting chaos throughout the week. I am expecting all of these things, these escalations to continue to cause chaos throughout the week. So you need to be prepared for volatility. You need to be willing to act during that volatility. Keep an eye on oil prices, keep an eye on treasury yields, and I'll be here every step of the way keeping you updated. Guys, don't forget, this is a brand new channel. I just started it last week. So if you have enjoyed the content or you at least just find it valuable, make sure to head down to the subscribe box down below, subscribe to this brand new channel, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. See ya, everybody.